Welcome back to the Republic Brothers Podcast. I'm Mike, he's Matt, and this is episode 25. Today is January 7th, 2026. We've got a packed episode today with breaking news out of Minnesota, where a woman is dead following an ICE-involved shooting during a federal immigration operation. From there, we'll get into Tim Walz's surprise decision not to seek re-election, the attack on JD Vance's home, Trump's renewed comments about Greenland, a Pentagon move against Senator Mark Kelly, and a new fraud investigation into California. Let's get started. All right, let's kick the show off today with some of the biggest news we've seen in a while. An Immigration and Customs Enforcement agent fatally shot a woman in a vehicle during operations in Minneapolis on Wednesday, January 7th, 2026, according to the Department of Homeland Security. The victim was a U.S. citizen who, according to Minneapolis City Council member Jason Chavez, was, quote, an observer and was, quote, watching out for our immigrant neighbors. The woman was allegedly attempting to run over our law enforcement officers when an ICE officer fatally shot her, according to DHS spokesperson Tricia McLaughlin. McLaughlin said the ICE officer fired defensive shots, referring to the woman as part of a group of rioters. She did not identify the woman killed or the ICE officer involved in the shooting. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem claimed the incident was an act of domestic terrorism. Noem stated, quote, they were attempting to push out their vehicle and a woman attacked them and those surrounding them and attempted to run them over and ram them with her vehicle, end quote. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey said, quote, the presence of federal immigration enforcement agents is causing chaos in our city. We're demanding ICE to leave the city immediately. We stand rock solid with our immigrant and refugee communities, end quote. The Twin Cities are seeing a massive deployment of ICE and Homeland Security investigations agents to conduct immigration enforcement and fraud investigations, according to multiple sources familiar with the plans.
The identity of the woman has actually just been released. She is identified as 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good. Good was identified by her mother. Her Instagram bio states, quote, wife and mom and crappy guitar strummer from Colorado experiencing Minneapolis, followed by a pride flag and she/her pronouns.
Well, I don't want to sound crass when I say this, but I don't think anybody's really taking that as much of a surprise. I've seen a few of the videos out there. Based on what I've seen and heard, it looks like it was justified, but I don't want to get too far into that until a little bit more comes out. But I will say this. ICE agents are not politicians. They're not activists. They're not social media villains. They're federal law enforcement officers tasked with enforcing the laws that Congress passed and presidents signed, whether people like those laws or not. What we're seeing right now is a dangerous trend. Agents being surrounded, harassed, interfered with, and treated like criminals for simply showing up to work. That doesn't make anyone safer. It does the opposite. You don't get to decide in the moment which laws count and which ones don't. You don't get to mob officers because you disagree with immigration policy. If you want the law changed, there's a process for that, and it's not screaming at agents in the street. ICE operates under the Department of Homeland Security. They execute warrants, they follow procedures, and yes, like any other law enforcement agency, if something goes wrong, it should be investigated after the fact. Not litigated by a crowd in real time that have no idea what they're talking about. When officers are blocked, distracted, or attacked, situations escalate, just like we saw today. Confusion rises, risk goes up. If you genuinely care about safety, don't interfere with the arrests. If you care about the rule of law, you don't selectively enforce it. If you care about innocent people not getting hurt, you don't create chaos around armed officers that are just trying to do their job. So yeah, investigate incidents, demand accountability where it's warranted. That's fair. But let ICE do their job and stop treating law enforcement like oppression and stop pretending that chaos equals compassion. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk now. I'd be willing to bet good money that there will be riots in Minneapolis after this, and I've already seen Tim Walz come out saying that he has put the Minneapolis National Guard on notice.
I find the response to this quite intriguing. After this happened, the first question that was asked was who was the ICE agent. There was no concern for the person who just died. They have been waiting for an incident to happen so that they could respond like the mayor did. From the video, you can see she is not free to leave the area as the agents are trying to get her out of her car. But some people just do not know how to act around law enforcement. To me, people don't realize how dangerous of a job these agents and police do. They have thousands of encounters with people, and their family wants them to come home. All you have to do when you encounter a police officer is listen to what they say and do it. If you did nothing wrong, they will ask you some questions, verify your information, and send you on your way. Not a big deal, it's just a minor inconvenience. Now, we don't have all the information yet, but it's tough to really tell exactly what happened, and a lot of the videos are from behind the car, so you can't get a clear picture of it. There are cameras everywhere these days, so more videos will certainly be released, and we'll get a better idea as to what exactly happened. It sounds like the ICE agents were trying to get one of their own vehicles out of the snow, and this woman tried to run them over. Kristi Noem held a press conference and said this woman had been stalking and harassing the agents all day. She described this as self-defense on the part of the officer. You can absolutely use a vehicle as a deadly weapon, so I believe shooting in self-defense is a reasonable thing to do. The first shot went through the front windshield, which means the officer was in front of the car when he made the decision to shoot. Now, you mentioned the potential for riots and protests. It is very possible it happens, and I would be shocked if it didn't. We see how the left reacts anytime there's an incident. The truth does not matter. It is all about the narrative. We saw that with the Michael Brown shooting and protests that followed. We saw that with the George Floyd riots. As Hillary Clinton once said, and other Democrats have said, never let a crisis go to waste. Tim Walz had a press conference and told people to protest, quote, like always. Given how violent some of those protests have turned out to be, we will see how that goes. Probably another summer of love situation, so the winter of love is coming. It just blows my mind that the mayor and the governor are siding with the illegal immigrants and the criminals. But ICE has said the operations will continue, which is a good thing for the people of Minnesota. But unfortunately, their elected politicians don't see it that way.
Well, I'm sure there will be lots more to come out on this, and we will get to that later. But speaking of Tim Walz, Governor Tim Walz confirmed this week that he is stepping away at the end of his term, ending what's been a long and very visible career in Minnesota politics. Walz says the decision is about family, burnout, and knowing when it's time to step aside. And on the surface, that sounds reasonable. However, we cannot ignore all the things going on around Tim Walz in Minnesota. Walz says he isn't leaving after a scandal. He's not term limited. He says he's not being forced out. He says he's stepping away by choice, and that's what makes this interesting to me. Is that the real story? I'd say the truth lies somewhere in the middle. We cannot ignore the daycare and COVID fraud he's been distancing himself from for the last few months. And the noise has been loud, and lots of people have been calling for him to be held accountable. If this was purely personal, why announce it now? Do you believe what Tim Walz is saying?
He said it was about burnout and family. He said he could not continue to govern and run for re-election at the same time, but that just does not hold up because he's already in his second term. So he already did the job of governor while running for re-election once. It was not about that. Tim Walz knew he would lose because it's clear to everyone that he let the fraud happen and did not provide the correct amount of oversight. People in Minnesota might not go out and say it, but when they go to the ballot box, they probably weren't going to vote for the guy that just let a massive amount of fraud happen. I don't know if you saw some of his press conferences of late, Mike, but he says he's not running away from the press or accountability. But right after he said it, he turned around and ran away. Not running for re-election is running away. He can say he's walking away for his family, but we all know his trouble is just beginning. And I want to mention, just how quickly of a fall from grace this was for Tim Walz. It was less than 2 years ago that he was the choice for vice president, and I always get a kick out of it because Tim Walz was chosen to be the VP because Democrats thought he could get the male vote out for Kamala. Then it became public knowledge that he puts tampons in the boys' bathroom, and he walks out on stage with Kamala and shows us some fruity dance moves that looked kind of gay. It wasn't the macho man intro that they were hoping for. Now, he is almost certainly done as a politician just 2 years later. I don't see any future at any level for him. And given what we've learned in the last few months, there's a good chance Tim Walz goes down as one of the worst governors in the country.
Well, speaking of VP picks, let's talk about the actual vice president. Late Sunday night, early Monday morning, a man approached JD Vance's Cincinnati, Ohio home and broke multiple windows with a hammer, including at least 4 windows on the residence itself. He also allegedly damaged a Secret Service vehicle parked on the property. Secret Service agents and local police detained him on the scene. Luckily, the Vance family was not at the home. They were in Washington, D.C. at the time. The suspect has been identified as 26-year-old William DeFore. Authorities are treating this as a serious security incident because it involved the residence of a sitting vice president and Secret Service protected property. He faces federal and state charges including vandalism, trespassing, obstruction of official business, and potentially assaulting or impeding federal officers. Now, here's the part you've been waiting for. The left is saying that this was not politically motivated. But I'm going to give you some information and some facts on this kid, and then you tell me if you buy that. His father is a wealthy doctor who has donated thousands of dollars to Joe Biden in 2020 and Kamala Harris in 2024. In April of 2023, he was charged with trespassing at the UC Health Psychiatric and Emergency Services. He was held on $10,000 bond, but his case was dismissed when a judge ruled he was not mentally competent to stand trial. Then in 2024, he was sentenced for 2 counts of vandalism at a local interior design company. He was given 2 years of mandatory mental health treatment for that. And the kicker, he recently appeared to be posting on social media and going by the name Julia. However, authorities correctly listed his name as William and his gender as male. It's not hard to see that and make the connection with political motivation. However, I like to give people the benefit of the doubt sometimes because, of course, we're also hearing that he's mentally ill. The suspect's attorney has characterized his actions as a mental health issue and not politically motivated.
I would be interested to see what all he posted on social media. That would give us a pretty good idea as to whether or not it was politically motivated. It is possible he didn't even know who owned the house, but it's also possible he knew exactly who used to live there. And he didn't like him. It could just be a coincidence that his family donated to Democrats. Time will tell. He is clearly mentally ill, so he may not be able to stand trial. And when I saw the mugshot of him, I thought he was like 15 or 16. I don't know about you. Turns out he's 26. I wouldn't have guessed that.
Yeah, I saw the mugshot. It definitely does look like a young kid, and I do not expect him to get any jail time. Like you said, he does have a mental health past. Isn't it just a coincidence, all these things, and his parents are obviously Democrats, and this kid goes after JD Vance's house? That just seems like one too many coincidences.
Now, given the name he goes by on social media, I think it's safe to say transgender, and if you're transgender, you are not Republican. But if they look at his social media, I would bet that'll tell you all you need to know. If he's out there constantly bashing Trump or Vance, then there is a higher likelihood that he knew whose house it was.
Yeah, we'll see what all else comes of this, but I am sure that at some point in time they will find something linking him to just not liking JD Vance or Donald Trump at some point. All right, so let's shift gears here a little bit and go kind of international here. So this week, something that sounded crazy a few years ago is suddenly back in the headlines. The idea that the United States can one day take control of Greenland. A senior White House aide openly revived the idea, framing it not as a joke or a stunt, but as a national security issue. The argument is pretty simple. The Arctic is becoming more important, Russia and China are moving in, and Greenland sits in a strategic spot that the U.S. doesn't want to ignore. Now, to be clear, this is not new. President Trump floated the idea years ago. What is new is how blunt the conversation has become. The problem is that Greenland isn't unclaimed land. It's a self-governing territory that belongs to Denmark, a NATO ally. And when U.S. officials start talking like nobody would dare push back against America, that's where allies start getting uncomfortable. European leaders quickly reminded Washington of a basic principle. Sovereign nations decide their own future. Denmark's message was blunt. Greenland is not for sale, and military pressure would cross a line. Even the administration has since tried to cool things down, emphasizing diplomacy over force. I believe America should absolutely protect its interests and do it in the right way. So what is the right way?
You started that out by saying it sounded crazy. I would not say it sounds crazy, even a few years ago. When you consider that the planet is in a warming cycle, and the possibility that the ice in the Arctic Ocean would melt and open new shipping lanes is very interesting. Many countries would love to see new lanes open, and given the location of Greenland, it is strategically positioned to serve as a place to defend and control those areas. Greenland is also rich in oil and minerals, so add that to the great strategic value. Does that sound crazy when you consider former President Andrew Jackson expressed interest in Greenland in 1867 after he purchased Alaska? When World War II ended, President Harry Truman offered Denmark $100 million worth of gold for the territory. That was a real informal offer to the Danes. Trump is just the latest one to try. Now, it would be really stupid of Trump to try and take it militarily, although he easily could. But the political fallout would be very bad for the U.S. That would almost certainly shatter the relationship between the U.S. and many European nations. I absolutely would try to acquire the land through a purchase or a land swap. What it would take to get Denmark to move and agree to move this land is probably an astronomical offer. But I have no issues with Trump trying to get the land. It will be difficult, though. It will be difficult, though, because Denmark knows of all the oil and minerals, and they see the value in the territory, so they don't want to sell it. They have had offers from multiple nations to buy this territory, but they always keep a hold of it.
So do you think there's a scenario where Trump will try to negotiate a deal, but basically strong-arm Denmark into agreeing to giving up the land?
I don't know that he'll try and strong-arm them, because, again, politically, the fallout would be pretty bad. The Europeans already don't like him and don't trust him, so I don't know that Trump would go that far. We do know in about a week's time, Marco Rubio is meeting with the Danes to discuss a possible sale. We'll see what comes of that. I wouldn't expect much. I think the most likely outcome here is a lease on the territory. Denmark really hasn't built a whole lot on that territory. So if you're Greenland and the U.S. came in and offered you $100 million a year for 50 years to lease territory and build military bases, would you take it? It's a large island with less than 60,000 people living in it. It's not like a military base is going to be in someone's backyard.
All right, well, we'll check back in on that in a week whenever Marco Rubio has his meeting with them. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth announced Monday that he has formally censured Democratic Senator Mark Kelly over Kelly's involvement in a video that encouraged service members to resist unlawful orders. Hegseth described the censure as a necessary procedural step in a process that could ultimately lead to Kelly being demoted from his retired Navy rank of captain, along with a possible reduction in his military retirement pay. Kelly fired back in a lengthy social media post, saying he never expected what he called an attack from Donald Trump and Hegseth. He laid out his 25 years of Navy service, including combat deployments and space missions, and called the move both outrageous and un-American. Kelly said he plans to fight the censure with everything I've got, not for myself, but to send a message that Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump don't get to decide what Americans are allowed to say about their government. The Pentagon says it actually opened an investigation into Kelly back in late November, pointing to a federal law that allows retired service members to be recalled to active duty under orders from the Defense Secretary for possible court-martial or other disciplinary action. Hegseth has noted that while 6 lawmakers involved in the video previously served in the military or intelligence community, Kelly is the only one under investigation because he is the only formal military retiree, meaning he remains under Pentagon jurisdiction. In his post Monday, Hegseth argued that Kelly's comments in the video and statements made afterward violated provisions of the Uniform Code of Military Justice related to conduct unbecoming an officer and undermining good order and discipline. He emphasized that Kelly's role as a sitting U.S. Senator does not shield him from accountability, warning that further violations could lead to additional action. According to Hegseth, Kelly now has 30 days to submit a formal response. A final decision on whether he will be demoted is expected within 45 days. Now, free speech does not mean freedom of consequences. Mark Kelly isn't just a politician. He is a retired Navy captain who still benefits from rank and pension. That comes with obligations. When a senior former officer publicly tells troops to resist orders, that is not abstract political commentary. That is flirting with the idea that service members decide which orders they like, and that's dangerous. And as a former captain in the military, I'd be willing to bet that he would not approve if someone disobeyed his orders just because they didn't like him.
Yeah, so let's look at this as if this were just another business. Mark Kelly told people not to do what they are ordered to do from their superiors. If you go out and criticize your boss and tell others not to listen to your boss, are you going to be punished for that? And it's not like you're being given illegal orders. Actions have consequences, and you can't think you are free from consequences just because you're a sitting member of the Senate. And you're right, Mike. If Mark Kelly was still in active service and ordered someone to do something and they refused, he would absolutely punish the person who disobeyed.
Yeah, it is 100% hypocrisy. I'd be willing to bet that he would punish his secretary for not listening to his order. Imagine if his secretary was like, you know what? Nope, I'm not going to make that phone call because I don't agree with what you're going to say.
Oh, yeah, he would absolutely lose it. He'd fire them.
Yeah, and he would find somebody else that does what he asks. Actions have consequences. We keep saying that over and over again. This is just laughable to me from someone who was in the military. Like, there's a whole indoctrination period when you join the military and you go to boot camp. It's all about, hey, we own you. Until you are out of the military, we own you, and you do what we say. There are consequences to your actions. And Mark Kelly should know that as a former service member.
Yeah, just sit there and think, like, you're working on a factory floor and the manager says, I need you to make 100 parts. But then the guy sitting next to you says, hey, man, he's wrong. You only need to make 20. How do you think the manager's going to feel when he finds out you were the one that said you only need to make 20? You think he's going to appreciate it that someone's trying to undermine him?
Yeah, we keep having to break these things down into like stupidity levels, and people still aren't understanding it. Anybody out there that agrees with Mark Kelly, just think about where you work. And imagine that tomorrow you walk into your job and your manager tells you to do something and you say no. What do you think is going to happen to you? You're going to be unemployed, right?
Most likely. And if you're out there telling others not to do it as well, they are going to throw the book at you.
Yeah. So I'm just stupid from Mark Kelly. He should know better, to be honest. Speaking of stupid, I think it's time for us to throw Gavin Newsom into the ring here for a minute. President Donald Trump announced that a fraud investigation into California has begun and the federal government is withholding billions in funding tied to social services and child care programs in California and other Democratic-led states. Trump made the announcement on social media, accusing California's leadership of corruption and suggesting the state may be more corrupt than Minnesota. At the same time, the Department of Health and Human Services confirmed it's freezing roughly $10 billion in federal funds, including money for child care and family assistance in California, Minnesota, New York, Illinois, and Colorado over alleged fraud concerns. Unsurprisingly, California Governor Gavin Newsom has pushed back pretty hard, calling the claims unfounded and pointing to his own record of fighting fraud, saying his administration has blocked more than $125 billion in fraudulent payments and prosecuted offenders. Okay, Gavin, if there's no fraud, transparency shouldn't be a problem. Federal dollars come with rules. If California's books are clean, open them up and show us, and this will end. Resistance is only raising more questions. But I keep thinking, why does this keep happening in the same states? Minnesota daycare fraud, California unemployment fraud, pandemic relief abuse. At some point, this stops being a coincidence, right?
Completely. We will see how much fraud there is in many of these states. Fraud happens, and it's bad regardless of who's in charge. The investigation needs to find out if the political leaders knew it was happening and what they did in response to finding out. You can't rule out the possibility that Gavin Newsom knew about it, but let it happen to ensure those people would still vote for him. Now, California is such a left-leaning state that the threat to him would have to come from a Democrat. We already know Gavin Newsom is not running for re-election. He is term limited, so he could not run again. Given all the facts we do know, I think it is far more likely with California and Gavin Newsom than it is with Minnesota and Tim Walz that the governor did not know about the fraud. I'm no Gavin Newsom fan, but I don't think he's going to have a ton of information on there being widespread fraud. It's well known in Minnesota that the Somali community votes as a bloc, and the Democrats knew that and didn't stop it to ensure they'd still vote for him. We have no information available now that shows Newsom was aware of the fraud to any one community, but we do know Tim Walz was aware of it. Whistleblowers have said the top politicians in Minnesota were informed about the fraud and did nothing. I just think this is all about Trump. Trump said something, so the liberal politician has to be on the other side. If Trump says there is fraud, you have to say there is no fraud, regardless of the facts. We see it all the time. It just happened with Venezuela. The left hated Maduro, but once Trump arrested him, he was no longer a dictator. He was suddenly a duly elected president. They will always go against Trump. You would think stopping fraud and the waste of your state's money would be something everyone is fine with. I would say let's look at it and see if there's fraud and put a stop to it. But since Trump is involved, you have to go the other way.
All right, well, it is time for our blind ranking segment. As always, tonight we're going to test each other on the countries we would most want to live in. We're going to rank them 1 through 5 without knowing what comes next. Once a country is locked in, you cannot change it. I'm going to go first and give Matt his list. Ready?
Let's do it.
All right, your first country is Canada.
Very liberal.
Oh,
high
Canada.
Taxes. English speaking, though, so that is a benefit.
Mm-hmm.
There is not a significant cultural barrier.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to start right in the middle and go 3.
Okay, I'm going to give you a hint and say you're off to a good start. All right, next up, you have Venezuela.
That is very low. Do I go 4 or 5? Given the turmoil they're in right now, I think you have to go 5.
Okay, number 5. Next up, you have England.
Kind of like Canada, but I don't think most people realize England is the 6th largest economy in the world, but in reality, London is the 6th largest economy in the world, and the rest of the country is pretty poor. I'll put it at 2, but I think already I would swap Canada and England.
Okay. So you have 1 and 4 left. Next up, you have Russia.
Yeah, that's going to be number 4. What's my number 1?
You're cornered in there at number 4 on Russia, right?
Yep.
All right, and in your number 1 spot, you have the United States of America.
Absolutely nailed it.
Good list. USA at 1, England 2, Canada 3, Russia 4, Venezuela 5.
All right, Mike, you ready for your list?
Yep, fire away.
First one up, France.
France.
Decent weather. You could live on the north coast or the south coast. Decent weather.
Not too interested.
You
to
got a
learn how to
language.
speak French, though.
Yeah. Language barrier.
Let's play it safe and split the middle. 3.
Number 3. Next up is Germany.
Germany. I don't anticipate you repeating any of the countries that I said.
No, there are no repeats.
I'm going to put Germany at 1.
Oh, going number 1.
Yep. I'm going to put Germany at 1.
The next one on the list is the one I would put at 1. Next up is Italy.
Oh. All right. Number 2.
Going number 2.
Yep. Number 2.
Going to be a tough one for the countries listed below.
Well, I have 4 and 5 left. Oh, geez.
Your next one is Japan. Massive cultural difference, but a very lovely country.
All right. 4.
Going number 4.
Yep. Number 4.
And at 5 is the one with the least cultural difference, Australia.
Oh, man.
There's some nice countries in that list. I didn't give you any terrible ones.
Yeah, that's not bad. I mean, I'm still okay with it. Doesn't it get kind of hot in Australia?
Yes, it does, but you'll be living next to the coast, so
Yeah,
it's not bad. So you went Germany 1, Italy 2, France 3, Japan 4, and Australia 5.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'd flip some of them, but I'm okay with that nonetheless. All right, well, that's it for episode 25 of the Republic Brothers podcast. If you're still listening, please do us a favor, hit the subscribe and follow button. New episodes drop every Monday and Thursday. If you agree or disagree with anything we talked about today, drop us a comment and let us know. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.